Mysteries from it was a 4-hour video titled Let's Talk About the Shape of the Earth, an interview with Dr. Danny Faulkner and an ISS astronaut. So the first couple hours he's talking to Danny Faulkner. There's a lot of stuff in here that made me want to respond, but I will limit it to just a couple points. So I'm just going to play a short clip. I don't see any copyright warnings on Justin Peters' channel, so so don't get mad.
Alright, oh, I wish I had a nickel for every time I've heard this one. NASA. NASA means in Hebrew, I'm sorry, I shouldn't laugh. NASA in Hebrew means to deceive. Wish I had a nickel. Does NASA in Hebrew mean to deceive? And if it does, would NASA be so foolish as to telegraph their deception in such an obvious way?
Well, if the Joker or the Riddler were in charge of NASA, of course they would, But real conspiracy people don't leave all such quote-unquote obvious clues lying around. And in a very, very quickly, but one word, no, the word NASA does not mean deceive in Hebrew. The word they're looking at there, and this is where amateur Hebraists can get into trouble real fast.
Yeah.
The word they're looking for here is nashah.
Nashah.
It's a SH sound, it's not an S sound, nashah.
That's right.
There is a word that actually is pronounced nasa, which is far, far closer than nashah is to the pronunciation of NASA, and it means to lift up.
Yes.
Which is interesting. It's almost like if you're going to admit something, that's kind of a cool thing. So that's just patently false. One person got this notion, went through the lexicon and found a word that resembled, they thought, the word NASA in Hebrew and ran with it. And this is a common problem with flat earthers. One flat earthers will make a claim, and other flat earthers will uncritically repeat it without checking out the claim first. There's absolutely no kind of quality control in these things. So this thing's been repeated endlessly. That's
right. Two different words. And I've had the biblical languages. Admittedly, I kept up with my Greek a lot more than I did my Hebrew. But I remember when I had Hebrew in seminary, that's how I remembered that word, NASA. I'm like, oh, it kind of looks like NASA to rise up. NASA sends up rockets to them. That's how I remembered that Hebrew word, NASA.
That's how I remembered that word, NASA. I'm like, oh, it kind of looks like NASA to rise up. NASA sends up rockets to them. That's how I remembered that Hebrew word, NASA.
Now I'm sitting here watching you, Danny, and I just realized there's something on your shelf back there that if I don't address it, I promise you the comment section's going to get lit up. The all-seeing eye in the pyramid. You are a Mason.
Well, it gets better than that. I have a little jar here, and I've got a Masonic letter opener in here, and I've got some dividers, and I've got a glow ball, and even worse, it says right there, Mason, right on the jar.
Now I know you're a Mason. You're drinking out of
What I did a few years ago is I was getting accused of being a Mason, so I just set this on my desk and took a picture and put it on my I put up any comment, I just put it up there. I had a little mannequin just giving this flat Earth salute thing, putting next to it, and it lit up. People were saying he's admitting he's a Freemason, and the thing is that I had a Mason jar. I mean that ought to have been the first clue that I'm just playing with you folks, and I'm playing with people on that. But the other thing up there, All Seeing Eye, that is several years ago we had people here at AIG, Answers in Genesis, wrote some books about cults and secret, other things, including Freemasonry. And they had a conference that they did on it. And that was one of the props that they had. And since I was getting into the flat Earth stuff, one of them gave it to me. And I just put the prop. Usually when I do these programs, I'll have these things in the background just as a little Easter egg for people to see. So anyway, yeah, that's I'm glad you noticed it. Very few people notice it, but many times this Masonic letter opener, I'll leave it in the background somewhere. People rarely notice it's in the background. And people say, well, that proves that you're a Freemason. Well, actually, this letter opener was from a commemoration of the 150th anniversary of the Grand Lodge of Kentucky, which was in 1950.
Okay.
I mean, how old do people think I am?
Yeah, right.
I have a letter opener, Masonic letter opener, made several years before I was born. So,
yeah.
Now again, I repeat, I am not a Freemason, never have been a Freemason, but I like to kind of yank people's chains.
So yeah, that was the part where it got a little weird. Kind of disturbing. Just wow. Can you imagine if, somebody was falsely accusing you of being a Nazi sympathizer or a white supremacist or... not that anybody's being accused of that these days, wrongfully. And so you just decided to, I'll just troll people with a swastika. Would you leave little swastika Easter eggs on your shelf just to toy with people? Just to yank their chains? What about a Nazi SS letter opener? Just leave that lying around. Would you even have that in your office? I kind of doubt you would. In fact, I know you wouldn't. But yet somehow with Freemasonry, even though he explains that a couple years ago AIG wrote a book and did a presentation on cults, and so Freemasonry is a cult, but it was from a 150th anniversary of the Lodge in 1950, so I wasn't even born yet. You wouldn't do that with Nazi paraphernalia. But somehow it's cute and funny to just make fun of Freemasonry and have an all-seeing eye. Compared to a swastika, which was adopted by the Nazis in the 30s, that's an occult symbol that is known around the world that has been part of secret societies and occult symbolism for centuries. Going all the way back to Egypt and the Eye of Ra. And, it really just kind of blew my mind, seeing that. And yeah, there was a whole host of what I would call straw man arguments and debunk. The whole thing about Faulkner is just kind of, fascinating. And I honestly hadn't even really thought about this guy in several years. And, I made videos addressing some of his arguments in the past, and as well as Jason Lyle, who's also in that video, and the Christonaut, Jeff Williams. he's always got to make an appearance too, to prove that he was really on the International Space Station. And how could a Christian lie? Yeah, just it's amazing that this is even happening in 2024. That of all the things going on, we're focusing on the terrible threat of the flat Earth theory that just won't go away, and we got to spend 4 hours debunking it. Like, shouldn't you have debunked it by now? And Faulkner, he has spent so much time knowing all these little ins and outs of the flat Earth. He loves to tell people what the flat Earthers believe, and
It is a long way to the top if you want a country and western, it sure is. Somebody said it. Wasn't me.